Well, we got a couple of really special people tonight who need no introduction, but I say a couple words. I've known Yo-Yo for almost 20 years now, almost to the day. And when I first met him in Philadelphia, I was nervous as hell. And I was going to go see one of the great artists and ask him for a favor. It took about 8 seconds before I realized that, what am I worried about? He's one of the greatest guys, and gracious and thoughtful and helpful, and it was just we've had a great relationship ever since. But I've always been amazed by this enormous capacity of his for wonder and for curiosity and for exploring things. One of the first things we did, sort of non-musical, is we went to a big art show and a retrospective on Cézanne, and he turned to me partway through and said, let's talk about quantum physics. Now, I happen to have studied quantum physics, so I was okay, but coming from him, I was a little surprised. But it sort of gives you a little sense of just interest in just about everything possible and in people and people of the world. And Damian Woetzel, who I've known now for 20 minutes, but I've known of him for many years, great dancer, principal of the New York City Ballet, involved with the President's Committee, along with Yo-Yo, the President's Committee on Arts and Humanities. Another great thinker, working with Yo-Yo on the Silk Road Project in New York City public schools. So I think we're in for a great evening of two great thinkers, great artists, and please help me welcome them to the stage, Yo-Yo Ma and Damian Woetzel.
Wow, wonderful.
Hi, everybody.
Great to
Thank
see
you,
you
Don.
all. So, I read that this is an ongoing conversation between us. So we can just pick up where we left off downstairs? Is that how it works?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And I just want to say one thing about Don Cook and quantum physics, is that he was telling me about the uncertainty principle at the Cézanne show. And the one thing I'm sure about is uncertainty. So this is...
You are positive
this
of
is
that.
about,
That's
exactly.
right.
That's about the extent of my
The
knowledge.
ultimate ambiguity,
Yes, absolutely.
whatever it is.
I'm vague to a fault.
Well, this is an ongoing conversation, actually, and it's one we've been having for a couple of years since we first met, I think maybe, 5 years ago, probably. I was still dancing, and we started talking about, I think the word that, I remember talking to you about was participation. It was about being involved in things, and then what that meant to each of us. And then, the need for that, or what it can do in any given field, whether it's in the arts or elsewhere, about the need for that. And I think that's sort of at the heart of this, don't you, in some way?
I think so. I think there's also something else about you and your wife, Heather, that when we met, Jill, my wife, and I met you and Heather, there was an instant rapport. And I can't, it's something that, I don't know where this comes from until I realized that Damian and Heather know everybody in the world. So maybe that's not surprising for them, but there was this immediate good chemistry about...
The difference is, we may know some people, but you've worked with everybody in the world, so it's different.
What was strange is that you seem so comfortable everywhere. And this is not often true with people from any walk of life. You kind of can drop Damian anywhere in the world, and he will figure out sort of what to do, whether it's an academic situation.
You have no idea. I found a new tool today. I think that's incredibly flattering, though
Is
I
it
think
an
it's
app?
Completely untrue. No, I don't know. Some of you may have been here earlier. John Hodgman was having a discussion, and he was talking about your friend Stephen Colbert, and how Colbert's version of a workout was he worked on never being embarrassed, ever. Whatever it was, he would not be embarrassed. And that was his tool. Yeah, that, and this one, which I love when he comes down, it's beautiful.
Well, you're talking about someone with Chicago roots who was an actor.
Yes, well, he toned
right?
this workout happened here, so which is nice, so it's very site-specific, which is always good. But the idea of being able to engage requires a certain amount of that. It's like saying, well, I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit. I will dance. I won't stand. in the back. I'll participate in some essential way that's a little scary, a little dangerous. But I think one of the qualities about you that is so relevant to this discussion about the ideas of citizenship and the arts is the willingness, in fact, obviously more than willingness, it's like the profound need to collaborate, to say, what can we do together? And I actually think that was our conversation. It was like by the checkout at the Mandarin in Kennedy Center Honors, like what can we do together? We should do something. We should participate together in some essential way. Then we'll know each other, and then we'll have common ground and a language. And that's exactly what goes on in all of these things that we've been talking about, I think.
Well, one of the things I and this will be the last compliment I pay you all evening.
Thank God.
But I think you seem to be a very confident person. And my dirty little secret is that I was quite, bless you, quite shy as a kid. And so I think if I were to look at the motivations about thinking about society or whatever, there are two facts that you ought to know. I was very shy as a child. And number two, I'm an immigrant. I came to the States as a boy of, 7 years old from Paris, from France. And as you know, if you ever have moved, you experience what it's like to be on the inside of something and on the outside of something. And as a citizen, as an American citizen, I feel I've benefited an unbelievable amount from the way of thinking that is here. I don't think I could have done half of what I have whatever lived through or accomplished in my life had I lived somewhere else. So I feel sort of one of those, immigrant gratitude towards the country. And so citizenship means something particular to me.
Just based on your own experience. Well, building on that idea that to be a citizen is to participate and to fully engage in your society it requires, some of Stephen Colbert's training and that sort of thing. What we wanted to do to start was actually to have a discussion about participation, but also to have some participation. So we're going to do something now. We're going to invite Yuanqing Yu and Ken Olson from the Chicago Symphony to join us. And we are going to have a little magic. I'm going to teach you the beginning of a ballet by George Balanchine called Serenade, to the music by Tchaikovsky, the Serenade for Strings, and you're going to be accompanied by Yo-Yo and Yuanqing and Ken, which is just something that you will never forget, I promise you. So, please, everybody, stand up. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to Yuanqing and Ken. So, the ballet begins on a stage full of dancers, and the way Balanchine described it is that this was his first ballet he made on coming to the United States in 1933. And his students had never really performed. And he thought, I need you to understand what it means to perform, which is very similar to the idea of participating. What does it mean to actually dance together as individuals in a group? So tonight is your chance to experience that. He imagined, having never been there, that the stage looked like California orange groves. He arrayed the dancers in a pattern based on the number that were there. He often said that if it had been 12, it would have been, 3 lines of 4, but instead it was 17, and so it was a different pattern, like an orange grove. So tonight you are the orange grove, and this is what I consider sort of an initiation into being dancers. You begin by raising your right hand as if the sun is shining in your eyes, as that light is shining in mine right now. So you follow me just like that. The sun is shining and you're shielding your eyes. Perfect. The next thing you do, and you can imagine this, that the sun is so bright that you start to get a headache. No, yeah, well, you can do your right, but you're going to confuse them. But I'm doing the mirror. So you bring that slowly to your head because the sun is so bright that you get a slight headache. Oh my God, so beautiful. Great. Then, because we're having a conversation about citizenship, you place that hand over your heart because you're feeling intensely proud of your citizenship. That's correct. Now, actually, you start to transform, and it is a transformation where you become, from ordinary mortals, you're going to become dancers and artists. You're going to lower both hands into what we call first position. Great. Then on my cue, you're going to take it one step further, don't be frightened, and you're going to slightly open your feet into what is also known as first position. Good. We're almost there. Now your right leg and both arms will open. Good. You're going to close everything into fifth position, or close to as you can get. And you're going to prepare to dance. Excellent. Okay, so now here's the sequence. Let's just walk through it quickly. The sun is in your eyes. 8 counts. I'll count them off for you when we do it. You slowly get a headache. You begin to feel patriotic. Therefore, you become an artist who happens to be a dancer. And you prepare to dance. Beautiful. What do you think, Yo-Yo? Okay, so now hold your places. You're going to imagine yourselves on the stage, and the curtain is down. The music begins first, and at a certain moment, the stage manager is going to say to you, warning on the curtain. And when that happens, you know what happens. You take your position. So you wait, and I'll give you warning on the curtain. But for now, I want you to imagine that really this is a transformative thing that you all are doing together as individuals. This is citizen artistry that we're doing here together. And I'm just going to say, are we ready on the stage? Okay. Balanchine Serenade, Tchaikovsky, Serenade for Strings. And you hold your positions. Eight slow counts. Bravo. That was beautiful. I have to admit that we have done this in several locations. We've done it in schools across the country. We did it at the Beijing Center for the Performing Arts with 2,000 Chinese in the audience. And now you've joined just a group of the initiated, so to speak. So welcome to Balanchine Serenade. Thank you, Yuan Xing and Ken. We'll see you a little later.
Wow. They were great.
They were so good.
Really
know,
were great.
I often will make more cues. I'll be talking over and saying a now, but you guys really had it, and it was yes, excellent. Good.
You know, it's funny because here you took a choreography which is coded by a great choreographer, music of Tchaikovsky, and we were talking about, just before we came up, about the connection between the Constitution, the document that binds our country together, and a score, a musical score. And I've actually had conversations with various people on that subject, because the Constitution is is the document that not only binds us together, but it's about something bigger than ourselves. And a score does the same thing. And the more we know the Constitution, the more we can actually find the freedom to act within its
Yeah, it's individuals within a whole. I mean, it's a series of musicians playing together, and that is an essential part of even what we just saw and what you just experienced, because it really did matter that there were individual qualities within it. You do not, I mean, Balanchine often said he loved an English garden, for instance. He loved the way the flowers, he did not want a regimented garden, and it really did matter that that corps de ballet, as they stood, all had ever so slightly individual qualities, because that's what made it a whole. It wasn't, you know, regimented. But when we were talking about the Constitution, I was fascinated by the idea the Constitution is an evolving thing. It's to a more perfect union. It evolves to that point. And I'm curious in the way that, you know, how musicianship, you know, how you relate to each other. Do you feel the same way?
Well, the same thing in terms of, I think, the Constitution being a living document, a work of music that's, let's say, that's written down, becomes living when there's full participation. Just like what you did, you made it alive. And I think for a score, you say, okay, well, these are notes, but actually every generation of people has to reinterpret these notes to have meaning in the present moment. And the more someone actually takes ownership of a whole score, as opposed to this is my part and this is what I do, the more you actually have know the recipe of what can make it alive and vibrant. And so I think there's the evolution of a score, or the evolution of the Constitution and its amendments. I think there's a similarity between the two.
Well, and with the individuals, as whether you are acting as your own person, as a citizen, as you know, within society, or in this case, let's talk a little bit about citizen musician itself, about the ideas that you came to believe in, and realize that it was something you wanted to express and share, that being a part in the same way you described. What is it how does it relate, being a citizen musician?
Well, I don't know. I think Damian and I have talked a lot about that kind of idea, and I would say that playing music is more than a transaction. You know, it's somehow, for me, some of the most memorable moments of playing music have not been in a concert hall. They've been at friends' weddings, at friends' memorial services, and sometimes, so it's for personal reasons, celebrations, and sometimes it's for societal moments where 9/11 commemorations.
Yeah,
You know,
I know that you said to my wife Heather was asking you about, you know, how you managed. First of all, just simply miraculous that you do all you do for all of us. I mean, you do an enormous amount, whether it's, you know, as you say, the 9/11 ceremonies, memorializing, or for friends, you know, anything. And you refer to it as your ecumenical duties, which I thought was really quite something. I mean,
well,
in a sense that...
because it's really responding to need. You know, I think there's no society that exists that I know of that doesn't have music. No culture that does not have music in it. And I think music is one way to memorialize moments. So people that have gone through moments as teenagers where you do file sharing, or if you are part of a certain era in jazz, or in pop music, you know those moments. This is the music that you had for your prom. This is the music that and it gets stuck and gets, actually, when you hear it again 50 years later, it brings you right back to that.
It takes you right back.
So there's a very, very coded place for memory in music. And what we go through in life, the most important things that we go through in life are the least measurable things. And music is able to locate those moments. And I think, and for people that are in crisis or or who actually are thinking through difficult problems, like studying and doing your homework. A lot of people have music on because what does music do? It's a mode of transport to a different state of mind, and that unlocks your imagination. And what does an unlocked imagination do? It takes you into a different world, and Antonio Damasio would define imagination as the deliberate or artificial layering of different realities. Think about that, artificial layering of different realities that you already know. Suppose you were not here and somewhere else, what would you be doing now? You are activating your imagination. So if music does that for you, and it actually takes you someplace and you come back into your world, often you have a fresh perspective on some of the issues that you're facing in your normal life. And I think finding the needs in society beyond the moments where you say, okay, I'm going to go to a concert hall, I'm going to go put this on my iPod, and there is that human contact that makes for this kind of...
It's such a conundrum in a funny way, let me tell you, because what you said a minute ago about it's not just a transaction. And, you know, but you're also, in the same time, we're talking about the utility, in a sense, of what can be accomplished uniquely by music or dance or, you know, visual arts, or, you know, but that uniqueness that comes with that, which is, in a funny way, we are talking about addressing a need and making you know, giving something, saying we're going to, it is transactional in that way. But it's just, just a much larger frame of what, you know, perhaps one might have expected when you just think, oh, I like music. There's just so much more to it than that, which doesn't have to even be explicit in a funny way. It just does it. I mean, I think we take too much of it for granted in a way.
Well, in a way, at a very basic level, I think Citizen Musician answers a call for need the way a fireman answers a call for need. You know, there's a fire, you go and help. And I think, so it's not about saying it's not a profession that is where there is a transaction involved, but it's really about more than itself, than what you try to define it.
That's right.
And
There's you know, in some ways it's a direct correlation, in some ways it's an additive correlation. Some of the work we've done in the schools in New York and you in Chicago and elsewhere has been about what do the teachers in that given moment need that perhaps music or the arts can provide to make passion-driven learning, for instance, your phrase, that memorable nature. You often talk about the idea of a performance for you must be memorable, otherwise it's, what is it? What was it if it's not memorable? I remember, I think I've told you that I had a conversation once, a long time ago, when I was just beginning to dance at New York City Ballet, and I was talking with Rudolf Nureyev, to name drop a little bit. And he was telling me how, when he was my age, at that point, I think probably 20 or 21, in Russia, so it was before his defection, he danced 11 times in a year. And I thought, oh my God, 11 times in a year? I danced 11 times last week. You know, the idea that it was just so spread out, and that was the nature of his existence as a dancer, 11 times in a year. And I think I said something to that effect. I danced 11 times last week. That's incredible. And he said, how many were events? And Rudolph was like, how many were events? And I thought, oh my God. And I've never forgot it, because it really was the same thing. It was about what was memorable about each one of them. Because he was getting ready to tell me what was memorable about all 11. It's formative in a sense when you think that things can either matter or they don't. They can be memorable or they don't. A day in a classroom for a child can be memorable or not. And there are roles to be played by, musicians or dancers or visual artists, and teachers are reaching out for tools in many cases, and that's what I think we're talking about here in many cases. I mean, there's needs of all kinds, I should say. I mean, when the Beijing experience I referenced a while ago, that was a conversation, right?
Right.
That was about what the arts might be able to communicate that in other areas we're having a little trouble.
Well, in a funny way, what Damian was trying to do in Beijing was to try and bring through the arts some values that we think are human values, but also very much practiced in American culture. And one of them is, well, some of those values that are collaboration. We were able to work with a whole array of musicians that we had never met before in a very short time and made something work. It was flexibility, the fact that, Meryl Streep
We were
came in
demanding flexibility is what it was. And in the cultural context, that was difficult. It was not just a yes. There was, well, there's only going to be 2 days, and maybe we should, and we thought, no, well, the whole point of this is we're going to collaborate, so we're going to collaborate. We'll figure it out. And it went from everything from getting the audience to do Serenade to you with the Chinese musicians that you were working with there, coming to a new détente of a sort, where you were thought, well, this is how I proceed on the stage, and it may be slightly different than you, but let's learn from each other and actually do it in front of a live audience at the same time, which was probably the challenging part, I think.
And improvisation. I think what happened was when Meryl Streep flew in, decided to read a poem.
Tang Dynasty poem.
And for which we put American music around it and shaped it. And then it went on from there, and there's this hilarious moment when she, does a bow, and we bow further, and we ended up on the floor.
There's a video of this. I'd encourage you to just look up Meryl Streep and Yo-Yo Ma on Google, and you'll see a video where, first of all, what she did, and, I have to say she's a citizen artist. She's just a hero, Meryl Streep, in so many ways, beyond just being marvelous, But she chose, we had a discussion for about a month about what this would be. What is this collaboration? Because it was very much the same kind of thing as what I described about you and me. How are we going to work together? What are we going to do? What is this opportunity we can take or not take? And if we're going to do it, let's try and do something meaningful. And she decided that she wanted to do a Tang Dynasty poem, which she thought was, appropriate in a funny way as an American actor. But she also found this letter Martha Graham wrote to Agnes DeMille about essentially being an individual, which in the context you can imagine is it was a little subversive, actually. And she kind of just put that out there, and she said, about keeping your individual voice. And this combined with Yo-Yo's choice of Crumb, George Crumb music, which was just inspired. And then, that would have been plenty. But then after that, she bowed to Yo-Yo, and Yo-Yo bowed to her. So she bowed a little lower, and Yo-Yo bowed a little lower. And by the time it was over, Meryl Streep was laying completely prostrate on the stage. And Yo-Yo was as well, holding the cello, just balefully, And that in itself was a hugely kind of communicative moment. The fact that they would do this, that this would happen in the National Performing Arts Center concert hall, where before that, earlier in the day, they were like, no, we can't have microphones, we don't do that. There was nothing about it was okay. And this is where it ended. It was exactly what they were worried about, in a funny way, but not. It was uplifting.
But in a way, I think all we're trying to say is that through being playful, you can model all kinds of values that we treasure, and they happen to be musical values, artistic values. So what we do with the Chicago Symphony, with Citizen Musician, and with a civic orchestra, and what you do with Citizen Artist, are things that we take because we see what's around us. These are the same values that we want to have in our workforce, in the way that our students will go off into the world and be citizens and citizen workers. And those values will hold us in good stead. And the principal value, I think, is in collaboration is the value of trust, because that's the currency that people in the performing arts, we trade on that, because you can't be vulnerable on stage and not trust one another. It looks bad, it feels bad, it don't work. You know, you actually have to have tremendous trust to have a conversation with somebody and says, we're not sure where it's going to go, but we have an idea.
This is such an interesting thing.
And it's going to be fine.
The idea of trust extends from an individual nature to, let's say an audience, and, there's all kinds of talk about that, how we break the proscenium, that kind of thing. But also it's about the arts in general in society, which is something we've been talking about a lot in a kind of large nature. Through the program I run for the Aspen Institute on Arts Policy, we just had a convening talking about ways of incentivizing citizen artists' work. And one of the things that was said was that the audience, meaning the public, might not trust the deliverable. What is the deliverable? What is it that, because as you said, it's indefinable in so many different ways. And that's like, that's our evolving document of a sort. How are we changing that conversation as artists in the 21st century from, one of the things we discussed originally was the idea that most arts organizations can often be seen as needy, asking for something. We need something. You should like us. We need. There's like a neediness. And what we're talking about is flipping that and saying we'd like to give. We'd actually like to be a part of an exchange in a different way than we are, which changes that level of trust, I think. That is the deliverable. It's how do you get to that? And it's collaboration and, tools for the workforce of the future, all kinds of things that are quite tangible, but very hard to say X means X plus Y equals Z. It's tough. But I think the collaborative things that go on speak for themselves in a strange way. It's Potter Stewart. You know it when you see it. You can feel it. And I was going to say we have a collaboration we could share with the audience right now that you've been working on. So this is, we're going to invite out a young poet, high school poet from the Young Chicago Authors. Her name is Dominique James. And she's written a marvelous poem called Love Letter Written on the Green Line. And she's going to collaborate musically with Yo-Yo and Sam Rothstein from the Civic Orchestra, Henry Wilford from the Civic, Andre Battles, who's from CSO's Percussion Scholarship Group, and Philippe Boulanger, cello from the Civic as well. And I should say that the music was developed in conjunction with the CSO's Mead Composer in Residence, Anna Klein. And Yo-Yo, do you want to say anything about the idea of setting words to music in general?
Well, it was really amazing because here's another form of collaboration between two different art forms. So so Dominique wrote this very, very expressive poem, and by putting music, are you changing it? Is it, the timing's different? It turns into yet another kind of art form. So for the musicians, and we just met once before today, and it was incredible to see what they've developed with Anna, and taking Anna's response to the poem in almost like in a few notes, almost like the DNA of what her takeaway is of the poem, and then through close reading of the text to just kind of react to it in a way that creates a shape and form that matches what Dominique is doing. I just have to say they're amazing, and I'm in awe of what they've accomplished in such a short time, and as a response to a very beautiful poem. So
terrific. So please welcome Dominique James, the musicians Sam, Henry, Philip, and Andre.
This is a love letter written on the green line. are a series of contradictions I am proud to call home. Inglewood, downtown, West Side, Chicago pride. Make my skin buzz with the thunder hum of your train engine lungs. Make my skin chill with the quiet of gunpowder mushroom cloud leavening and the silence of sinking lung. You are scapegoat, aggressor, peacemaker, and the one to blame. I am ensconced in every crooked bone of your body. The hunch of your tired back unfurls straight. Every morning before work, I am proud of your temperament. Prouder of your temper and skyline standing at ready. Not salute. You call yourself open. You CTA, you bike, you drive, you run, slowly letting outsiders in your corridors. You series of parts that act like you don't fit together beautifully. Act like Pilsen can't kiss Bridgeport. Act like you don't eat tamales, hot dogs, Harold's, and pizza. I am ensconced in every jagged division of your streets and hoods and gangs, and stop cutting me. Stop breaking yourself. Stop blaming yourself. City so in the dark, even with street lights and blue camera boxes, you cannot see. You are the sum of your parts. City so light, you are in a garden. The dirt is under everyone's fingers. The flowers are in everyone's backyard. City so light, you are a garden. Dirt is under everyone's fingers. The flowers are in everyone's backyard.
That was incredible. Just phenomenal.
Talent, huh? Yes.
You know, the last line of the Martha Graham letter is, "Keep the channel open." And I was thinking about that as she finished. I mean, the channel is so clear, her voice is so clear, and it's so the fusion with the music that you provided was like the ocean for her to sail on. It was just beautiful, just great. Well, I mean,
they're
rock and
wonderful,
roll.
wonderful people and wonderful support. I think, you can't underestimate the individual talents, but also the people that are behind and supporting. I think that is such a huge factor. I mean, I think the two together makes for amazing things.
The way it happens is, It is mysterious in a funny way because it does take a huge village. Just the people who, add in and help and facilitate. And then in the end, it's a collaboration of a small number. But, I think if we looked at this like an airport, what just went on here, you would see a hub just extending to influences that added and added and added. Her channel was just so incredibly clear, and I watched you work on it earlier with the musicians and talking, and it was all about clarity. It was about finding a clear voice. And that's something that's particularly, an artistic challenge. We try, we fail, we try again, we keep going, we readdress. Often when I listen to you play one of the great Bach suites, I feel like, and I think I said this to you the other day, it's like you readdress it. And then you dwell on it, and you readdress it again. And I think that's a very valuable tool in learning. Do you think, or does that resonate?
Absolutely. I think often it's not. I always make the hamburger analogy.
Of course.
It's like it's like,
sorry, what's that?
Which is that you say, okay, well, you've heard this piece of music before, or do you have to hear it again? I mean, I've had a hamburger before, but I still crave the next hamburger.
The burger.
And so it's where you place your state of mind. So it's sort of like, not another hamburger, but rather, what is a hamburger? What does it, how is it going to be made today? Is it going to be, grilled, or are you going to put tomato? I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. But it's that desire to make. How would you like your Bach suite?
How would you like your Bach suite today? That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, and all of those things actually, it's a convergence of many factors that creates a memorable moment. So it's not. I'm not giving you a freeze-dried, just add water version of Bach suite because it's going to sound manufactured. So it's got to be in response to.
It's about, you're talking essentially about relevance to a moment, to being in the moment, to not being, irrelevant, to being memorable, relevant, important to the moment, whether it's the music or the burger, either way.
Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely. And that happens in our interactions. It happens in marketing. It happens in teaching. It happens to a child asking a question and parent responding, "Don't bug me again." It's like, or I'm going to pay attention to exactly what you're asking, and I'm going to respond, and to making sure that every moment counts. Because the value in life, right, is truly, if you live a full life, it means that every minute that you live, you really mean it. Because that minute, once it's gone forever. And so the value of the humanities, the value of the arts, the value of all of those things, it's not what you own, but it's your attitude towards how you live. And I'm fond of saying, coming from a profession that used to be art for art's sake, I think that it's art for life's sake. And that's the thing that we really need to think about.
I was thinking today, I told you earlier that I went with my niece Savannah, who's here visiting with me from New York. We went to the Museum of Contemporary Art, and there's a number of wonderful exhibitions. There's the William Kentridge exhibit, but there's also a John Cage exhibit. And Cage was very adamant about the life of the moment, about whatever it was what it should be. You need not adjust it. You need not, there's a great recording of him talking about, how to him the Symphony of 6th Avenue was just a marvel. The buses and the things. He said, I couldn't write that. Basically, it just is what it is. And to be able to train your mind to appreciate every moment in that way, I was thinking about that a lot this afternoon. I thought, wow, that's, it's an attitude adjustment of sorts, but it has to do with the relevance that you're describing, I think.
My wife used to say to our children, so when someone says, I'm bored, says, oh, do I have to do this? This is boring. No, it's not the thing that's boring. It's you that's, that's boring.
You are bored.
No, I mean, we've all had teachers that have turned us off to certain subjects. It's not the subjects that are boring.
It's the gateway or
It's,
the...
exactly.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
and that's the thing. And so in terms of your line about stay open, keep the channel open. It's like, and I love the fact that there are moments in anybody's life where they are most open towards everything that's surrounding them.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be during adolescence, it could be during, the first year in college, or when you move, or suddenly, or when you travel, you're nothing that you can count on is necessarily going to be there. So all your senses are activated. And I think those are the moments, for veterans, very often, their period during wartime is the time they have felt the most alive, because they're that much closer to not being alive. And so I just think that what the artistic contribution to life is that it can make your senses really awake, so that you are thinking and feeling completely.
It's remarkable because it's again on an individual level and on a much larger level of humanity. Because on an individual level, each of us has this potential for being completely alive, all nerves open and receiving and giving back and finding ways to interact. But then as a society as well, we can be participatory, we can not be. And on the individual level, we had some discussions last week about veterans specifically, about how music has become more and more important in therapies of various kinds. I mean, one fellow we talked with was Arthur Bloom, who does work at Walter Reed with returning veterans and post-traumatic stress specifically. And it's the level of concentration in some cases that the music actually helps the most, because they begin to study an instrument or to re-study, and depending on the case. And where there's concentration level is quite small in the beginning, it grows and it grows and it grows through music, through the engagement with music, which I just thought was fascinating. Mm-hmm. And then there's many other ways, that music contributes in health. And, perhaps now would be a good moment to bring Yuanqing back.
That would be really
Yes,
great.
That'd be great. Yuanqing, will you join us again? Ladies and gentlemen, Yuanqing Yu from the Chicago Symphony. So you've heard us talking away here, but we've been in a dialogue about your work, and I thought the logical place to start would be to say, how did you come to be doing what you're doing, and does it relate to this idea of this common humanity that we're kind of endorsing here?
Let me first say how honored I am to be on stage with both you and Yo-Yo. I really admire the work that you're doing, and to be on stage with you is a great honor for me. Going back to your question, I've been listening to the dialogue so far, and I'm really inspired by all the subjects and points that you've touched. And I think, being artists and musicians, we are constantly going deep inside ourselves and reaching out to our public. So that I feel like there are two very important essential elements in terms of how we approach art and music. When I look at the music, I try to identify myself, go the deepest part inside of me to relate myself to the piece. And then when I perform it, I try to reach as far as I can to the people who are listening. And those extremes play a huge part in our life. And about 4 years ago, I went through another side of the extreme emotion, is when my son, who was diagnosed with leukemia, he's actually in the audience, he's fully recovered and finished treatment. And the experience that I went through is indescribable, and I'm not the only one. When I'm in the hospital, when I was in the hospital for the past 3 years, more than 3 years of treatment, I've seen families going through the pain that I go through. But also hospital Children's Memorial Hospital is where I saw the common humanity there, because that's where the nurses and doctors take care of the kids, and the parents and grandparents, they're suffering, but they're providing love for their kids. And the kids also extremely needing their parents and grandparents' support and the nurses. So it's there when I didn't think I was going to be surviving that experience. I thought it almost pushed me to the brinks of my breaking point. But there I am. I survived this, and I feel like it really put perspective in my life, thinking how I would contribute to the society, to the cause of humanity. And also going back to the point, I was listening backstage, Yo-Yo was talking about living in the moment of now. And I think it's so difficult nowadays with so many distractions. But music is one place we can't not live in the moment. If I perform on stage and I'm thinking about my grocery list or something, I surely will make a mistake. So in a way that I feel that, it's naive for me to think that if I bring music to the hospital, it's going to take people's pain away. That's not the point. But I think for me, I see the need there that temporarily relieve the people or transport them to freeze the moment a little bit so that they don't have to be in that pain for that 45 minutes that we're playing. So therefore, I started, along with my colleagues in the orchestra, Ken Olsen, who played in the first part, was a member of the ensemble. It's called the Civitas Ensemble. And the name Civitas, also we picked the name because it means civic duty. It means a sense of community and a shared responsibility in terms of citizenship. So the meaning of the group is right there, and that's a little background of how we started the group.
I'm sure that, it's interesting, it's not necessarily to be as clear again, let's say we're going to play music and it will ease pain. It's about something else. It's about something larger, context, right. Perhaps. The word transport, I think.
One of the words that we were, so we met just once before because we're going to play something, right? And we chose a piece of music that is kind of can serve multiple functions. And this is where the transaction thing never works well with music, because it's a piece of music that we could play both to memorialize the passing of somebody, but also to celebrate something. You can play it at weddings, you can play it at funerals, and it serves both purposes at once. And the word that we were talking about, remember what you were saying? What was the thing that we were looking for, the place that's between what?
Are you talking about sacred and secular?
Yeah. That really fine line between the sacred and the secular.
We're gonna bring Ken back in a minute to explore that. But would you tell us what the piece is and how that relates to the idea of sacred?
The piece is Bach, Air on the G string, and it's meditative. It puts your mind into transports you to a different place. I think for different people, it would mean a different place. I think that's also the beauty of the music, is that there's no right way or one way to interpret it. It all depends on what you've been through today or what you've been through this week and what it means to you at this moment in this place to listen to this piece of music. And with you, you're playing, of course.
No, well, there's, the bass line that just keeps plucking away it's time, it's the moment, but it's also timeless. It actually has the biggest thing in the world, and it's also the most precise moment.
Wilde wrote, all cliches are true, and it's true. It is that thing. It is that which one looks for, why one goes and one wants to feel. We want that. We reach out for it, and it's if you think about it in a health setting, how utterly inappropriate it is not to have that opportunity to be able to have that relevance to something larger that music can provide, or fine art, like at the Cleveland Clinic, which I visited, and it's just a place where, in all of it, you are surrounded by evidence of beauty and of thought and of something larger, something bigger. So I think why don't we do that? Let's have Ken, would you join us again? Not sure we're being serious. We're going to close in a moment, but I wanted to just say, you know, Ken and Yuanqing, the quality that you described, you know, that secular and the sacred and the transportation, I can't think of anything, I mean, that, you know, there's like, again, the cliche, they floated off into the night, you know, with under the wings of your music, which I think is so incredibly strong, what you're doing. You know, and with Civitas and with Citizen Musician and the way that, you know, it can lead, because that's what this was, you know, this talk grew out of a desire to share with you all these ideas and this idea, I mean, frankly, of movement within the arts world to participate more fully, to give more fully, and, you know, we're going to be doing things all around the country of this nature, and tomorrow morning in school, not too far from here, we'll be exploring, you know, how the arts can participate there, and how they participate in Chicago in the big picture in education and in cultural plan. But you know, tonight I think to have these set of artists, to have you here on this stage and what you're doing is just incredibly meaningful. And I want to bring back all of the artists who joined us tonight, Dominique and all of the musicians, and Yo-Yo, I'm thinking that maybe you want to, you know, maybe this is like a bravo.
Bravo! Yes!
Bravo.
Andre, Dominique, thank you.
Just fantastic. I mean, just, Yo-Yo, would you give us, in a sense, you know, a last benediction of sorts, you know, because look at what they did. I mean, they did everything that one hopes, in a sense, participation and collaboration and imagination and, you know, all the way down the line. And, you know, this is the dream, in a sense, right?
Well, this is the dream, is that, you know, I think of all of this like the story you all know of stone soup, right?
Of course.
There's no food, but somehow you each bring something, and the idea is you want to share that you bring, and you each participated in, you gave all of yourself. You know, you just kind of, you said, we're in it. We're going to trust the process. You thought probably when you met me I was pretty weird, right? Yeah, but yeah, exactly. You all thought I was really weird, right?
Yes.
Do you think I was weird?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a touch, yeah. Sometimes, yeah.
Okay. So I'm not joking, right? And you know I'm weird because we've worked together before. And Dominique, but what happened throughout the process? Did something made you say, okay, this is okay, or what? What happened?
I really liked the evolution of the collaboration. At first, it was, okay, they're going to play the background music, I'm going to say my poem. And then eventually it evolved into this conversation between all of us in which I felt like I became an instrument and became part of the ensemble. That's when I really got to enjoy it.
And what did you think?
Well, I've always taken to art forms that have combined. So in this case, it's poetry and music. It can be dance and music. It can be art and poetry. And I thought that it was spectacular working with all different kinds of musicians and artists and just collaborating on this project together.
And I've been working with Philip for the last 2 years. We've done a number of things together, and what you are like deep in citizen musicianship, right? Why is that? What's your problem?
All in.
Well, I think, being a part of processes like this, well, you all saw what it can turn into. It can be a really powerful expression of a lot of combination of things, and for me, I love being a part of that, what you both spoke of, that trust that it takes of everyone on stage being a part of the process and really watching it evolve, and it's a powerful thing to be a part of. So,
well, thank you. And so, Andre, you're the youngest member of this group. So, are we like funny, scary adults to you, like in the sense of, are we strange animals?
Seeing you guys makes me not want to go into music. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. It's really humbling. It shows me what I can become and
In a good way.
yeah. And it shows me the things that I can accomplish, and it's wonderful working with people that know more than I do and kind of help me out with some things. So it's definitely a wonderful experience.
Well, I'm glad you're not going to go into music, but that you're just going to be so active in music. You have to go in it. You can just,
Concerts, yeah.
No. Listen, you're great. You did great. And you were like you had a lot of good ideas, right? You tried lots of things during rehearsals.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. It coming from you, it couldn't mean more. It really couldn't. Yeah.
No, but you were like, you said, okay, let's try this. Let's do, you've always liked that. You always kind of, disruptive force in your community.
Yeah. I grew up. I was in a family of 8, so, and being one of the younger ones, I established myself, and being one of the smaller ones, I had to do it with a loud voice.
That's great. So
Yeah.
So you're definitely a disruptive force, and to the largest man in this group. And were you naturally a disruptive force by just sheer size of the cello that you play, or what? How did you become a member of Civitas?
Is that a euphemism?
This is a humanities.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Well, I became part of Civitas because I absolutely love Yuan Ching and also her family, and we've played together ever since I joined the orchestra. We've collaborated in so many concerts and things, and this was a chance for us to sort of musically become even closer. And since I'm big, that is why I play the cello, actually. I wanted to play the violin, and they told me I was taller than everyone else, and you were going to play the cello, so...
It's just like the costumes, doesn't fit. Oh, no, you're going to do that one. That's right. Well, I want to, just say one last thing. So Dominique, tomorrow morning we're going to do this at Perez Elementary, and I want to take this one step further. I don't know what time you're planning on coming, but can you come a little earlier and work with some 5th graders on their poem that they're going to present?
Yes, I would love to.
That's right. So extend the collaboration a little further. All right. Well, I think on that note, we just say thank you to everybody for being here and for all of you for participating. Thank you so much.